Hey guys, Woods Farm here. Just back out working on the Kubelwagen. Episode 73. Still dealing with COVID-19. I hope everyone around the world watching these videos is doing okay. Everyone here at the farm's doing good. It's just been a little bit of a pain to get parts and supplies, but that's not the end of the world. It's the least of our concerns. But while I'm home, I'm going to work on the Kubel. So last I left, I was talking about moving on to the canopy and things that need to happen for the safety. I'm going to revisit these brakes for the 5th time and just see if I can figure out what's going on. So to start, I'm going to pull all of the actual hubs and check the wheel cylinders and make sure there's no leaks. And just do an inspection, because I actually have not pulled off the brake drums since I installed them, assuming everything's good on that end. I don't think that's going to reveal any sort of major issues. I guess it's possible one of the cylinders has a really slow leak. Maybe that's bringing air into the system. So that's one of the reasons I'm going to check. I've already pulled off the driver's side and checked that. It looked good. There was no moisture or any indication of brake fluid. I did notice, and I should have thought of this a lot earlier, you know, being a budget project, one of the parts I noticed was very expensive were brake drums, the drums, whatever you want to call them for VDUB purposes. They're pretty pricey actually. Most parts are super cheap, but I noticed that that was something that was probably going to cost me upwards of $1,000, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I just remember they're being really expensive. Anyways, long story short, I pull the hub on the other side and it's pretty freaking rusty. There's some pretty serious pitting, and there was a lot of brake dust on the inside from me driving it around, probably trying to use the brakes. But not your regular sort of brake dust, kind of this orangey sort of rust dust. So I might have to bite the bullet and get new drums. It could just be a matter of the shoes just not having, you know, the clamping power on that rusty surface. But that said, I never really cleaned them. I sandblasted the exterior and painted them, but I left the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to clean up the inside of the drums. Now, part of me wants to start sanding them, but you know, they need to maintain sort of a balance and, you know, a certain profile, so I can't get too aggressive. But I am going to hit them really hard with the wire wheel and a scouring pad and some brake clean, and clean them up and see if that makes any difference. So I'm going to go from wheel to wheel, make my way around, see if there's any leaks or any other obvious problems, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to clean those drums. Cover cap's got to come off. There's a wheel nut in here. These are a weird system. I've never seen anything like this on a vehicle. There's like a clamp down nut here. Yeah. That wasn't even that tight. There's the outer bearing, and this should just come off. Okay, there's the wheel cylinder, and just looking for any signs of leakage. You're going to get that, you know, at each end where the piston comes out. With the exception of a little bit of fine brake dust and rust, there's no indication of a leak. This one doesn't look as rusty as the driver's side, I think, but you can see, it's hard to see in there. The light. Yeah, I mean, there's a spot that's pretty rusty. Just gonna try to clean that up. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but that's the after. And again, I think this one cleaned up a lot better. It probably doesn't show on the camera, but it's definitely a lot more of a smooth metal surface, and it's not nearly as pitted. So I'm assuming the driver's side, you know, probably had some moisture or more moisture get into it while it was sitting out in the field. And this one must have stayed a little drier. Because I don't think it was, the surface rust was there, but it wasn't as deep, it's not as pitted. So we'll see if that makes any difference. I'm going to go on and check the other four, and if there's anything significant, I'll throw the camera on and show you. So I just went out for a test drive after cleaning the brake drums, and no real effect. Really squishy pedal. However, by taking the drums off, I backed out the shoes considerably to make it easier to get the drums off. So I went ahead and readjusted them, and then I quickly just did a quick brake bleed, starting in the back, working my way forward. Didn't really appear to get much air out of anything. Maybe the rear passenger side, but I don't think so. It just seemed like fluid coming out. Didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the adjustment seemed to make the pedal a lot stiffer. So I think part of my issue is my reluctance to have any sort of drag. And when you watch other videos, they say you back it out 2 turns. You basically put the shoe all the way in until it's tight, until the tire is basically locked, and then you're supposed to back it out 2 turns. But that seems like way too much. Like particularly on the front, if you come out 2 complete rotations on both of the adjusting stars, I mean, it's completely spinning loose, and there's probably, you know, shy of a 1/16 of an inch of space between that you can see between the pad of the shoe and the outer edge of the drum. So if you adjust them in, you start to get that, you start to hear that little bit of rubbing, and there's a lot less clearance. It's like a hair. And when you do that, you get the pedal's a lot more solid. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like if there's any sort of friction happening, those drums are going to heat up. But I have zero experience with this, you know, style of braking. It's an unboosted system. I think that master cylinder, it doesn't really have a lot of travel and a lot of oomph. So I think the margin of error for having your brakes adjusted is pretty small. So I'm going to keep working at this, and you know, hopefully I can get some sort of stopping power, and we'll go from there. What I really need to do is I need to go and drive a couple of, you know, 60s and 70s era Beetles and just see what, you know, what the braking is actually like. I mean, today, when I first took it for a test drive, I wouldn't be comfortable driving it in traffic. But I have had it at different times where the brakes were, I think, adequate, right? You know, smart driving, you wouldn't have any major problems. But, you know, is it comparable to modern anti-lock brakes, you know, with brake boosters and whatnot? I don't know. Like, it's a much lighter vehicle, yes, but I just don't really have any reference for what does, you know, vintage Volkswagen brakes, what are they supposed to feel like? I really don't know. So not good. I am notorious for over torquing lug nuts. And these poor little buggers have been on and off so many times. Frankly, I've had them pretty loose for a lot of the time because I know the tires are coming on and off, but whatever, today, this one, it just was going tight and then it was going loose. And that's never a good feeling. So, oh well. I don't know if I can tap that out and put a bigger bolt in there. Maybe. I mean, I wasn't cranking on it. I was just snugging it up too. So I mean, it's just been on and off, you know, hundreds of times. Okay, so I just took it for a good test drive up and down the road. And it seems like the brakes are certainly improving. I was able to lock them right up a couple of times there, probably doing about 20, and they seem to be a lot better. Just feeling the drum. It's not too warm, but I was doing a lot of heavy braking. That one's a lot warmer. Both the same. And yeah, both the same. So the fronts are a little warmer than the backs. The back drums are a little bit larger, so they probably take the heat a little better. And obviously the fronts are probably taking the brunt of the braking force. So I think I'm going to call this a win on the braking situation. You know, you're not, you know, if you're doing 80, it's not going to stop on a dime or anything, but no car will. I think I'm going to call my mechanic and put her in for a safety. I might be able to adjust those brake shoes out just a little bit more, get even a little more grip, but as it stands, there's nothing else to do except bolt the seat belts in. Windshield wipers, lights, brakes, I think we're there. So this is a quick video. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it seems logical to wrap it up. I know in the last video I said I was going to work on the canopy, but I really felt like these brakes needed another look, and I really wanted to try to get them sorted out. So now that the brakes, I think, are at a point where I'm comfortable with them, I am going to attack this canopy. I definitely want to get the pattern finished, and like I said, the plan right now is just to dye it, add some really basic leather grommets on the attachment points, and then just go with it for the summer. Another quick thing, I need to make some sort of front license plate mount. I've got that skid plate in, looks good. Can't really see in the crappy lighting in the garage, but it's a big improvement on the kind of overall look of the front. But yeah, some sort of front windshield license plate, and I think we are good to go. Oh yeah, I do need to rig up a rear view mirror. I believe I only need a driver's side mirror and a rear view. So I do have something I got from the junkyard. I'm going to play around with a magnet or something, or maybe drill a couple of holes and tap them. So yeah, that's another little thing. So there's a few little things, but in the next day or two of working on it, I should be able to get that all sorted out. And maybe I can make an appointment for next week, trailer it into town, and get this on the road. I really don't think the insurance is going to be a big deal. I got an actual legit quote from Haggerty last year. I want to say like midsummer or something. I kind of thought maybe it might be roadworthy by the fall, but I just fell too far behind. But I called them, talked to actual person on the phone, really nice lady, and got a quote. So I doubt that quote still stands, but like at that, I recall at that point she was just ready to take the credit card and like get it all sorted out. It wasn't a big deal, so that'll be pretty easy to deal with. It's just a matter of dealing with that safety, but everything's good. Brand new tires, all the front ends completely rebuilt, all new tie rods, ball joints, everything. So any issues now are mechanical. They don't really relate to the safety. Talked about that CV joint. Ultimately, I think that CV joint's going to need to be completely replaced. There was a bit of a whine. I just noticed it on my last test drive, and I'm betting it's coming from there. And I don't know, bearings, maybe wheel bearings all the way around. I got to do a little more investigating on that. Wheel nut is supposed to be really friggin' tight. I know that much. And I did tighten them down. I got to put cotter pins through that though. The front one, I don't know if it needs to be preloaded or what. You know, it seems to be like you tighten it and then the tire doesn't, you know, want to spin by hand. And it doesn't really take much to like loosen it or tighten it. And I don't know how tight that needs to be, so I got to research that. It's got that lockdown nut, so it's not going to fly off. But as for the bearings and how they need to be set up, I really should figure out what kind of torque that needs to be set at. A couple other things, you know, I'm babbling now, but my daughter mentioned that one of these lights is brighter than the other. I believe, I want to say it's this one that's brighter on that side, which would make sense to me the way I have it wired up. So they work, signals, brakes, all work. It's just one's brighter than the other. So I don't know if that has something to do with the way I split the wiring, and maybe I need to do some experimenting, try something different, and see if I can get them to be the same brightness. Or I don't know, maybe just one of the bulbs, you know, the bulbs on this one are crappier. Possible, I guess. But anyways, you got any suggestions for the engine heating up and how to gauge if it's overheating? Maybe the vapor lock issue, leave a comment below. I'd like some feedback on that one, but I'm going to wrap this video up here. As always, thanks for watching.